Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Doc Ram is with us. Welcome, Doc Ram.
Oh, man.
Hey, I'm looking forward to Kansas City. How about you?
Yes, it's going to be a pleasure to spend time with you again. I missed your company.
Well, we're going to have a lot of fun, and if anyone would like to have a bite to eat with us, maybe Saturday night, let's see if we can make that happen.
Yeah, go out and get some Girl Scout cookies made with real Girl Scouts. That's it.
Oh boy!
I love the Addams Family. We need more of that in our social media.
Yeah. Well, that was an interesting television show. I used to watch that when I was much younger, and I don't know why. It was just amusing, I guess.
It was so over the edge. Gomez, Morticia, Tobula. It was so over the edge. It actually was pleasure, and I'm missing all of that now in the universe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's
having
not
fun.
much. Yeah, I don't know of television that's fun to watch and is clever. There's stupid things to watch, and even the commercials. I don't watch television, but if I'm passing, if I'm at someone's house, I'm passing by a television, they have it on. The commercials are idiotic. I can't even tell what they're for. I mean, it used to be that you would see a washing machine commercial on television for Maytag, and they would show, now this is a Maytag belt. It's thicker, it's heavier, it's wider, it's stronger than the competition. This is a Maytag pulley. It's heavier, wider, more durable. So if you want a durable washing machine or dryer, you want a Maytag. And now I don't see any of that. I don't see anything other than features, more buttons, more dials, more complication, more expense, more to repair, those kind of things. And actually, Rick, we've moved away from the do-it-yourselfer, the guy or gal who wanted to fix something. I don't know if we can do it anymore. Mrs. Finelli said to me,
it's cheaper to throw the printer away and buy a new one because it's not about the printer anymore. It's about the printer ink as a metaphor.
No, you're absolutely right. You're right. You can buy the printer for maybe $20, but when you want to refill that guy, it's going to cost you $40.
And you can sign up for a club where it'll only cost you $20 a month. That's like leasing the thing. The whole thing's nuts in the way we're doing marketing now. It's wrong.
I remember my parents had a phone on the wall in the kitchen, and they leased it from Bell Telephone, I guess it was at the time, back in the 60s. And I think it was $1.17 a month to lease this phone. And I added this up. I was, a young guy, and I said, this is nuts. We should buy a phone. We should have our own and not lease this thing, the same phone that we've had year after year after year after year. Now, they were durable. There's no question about it. A Bell Telephone from Western Electric would probably last 40 or 50 years and still work, unless you had roaches in the house, because roaches like the the heat of the electronics in there, and they would congregate in there, and they would surround the bell clapper so that the bell wouldn't ring and you wouldn't hear your phone ring because of the roaches. But other than that, phones would last a long time. Now, how do I know about the roaches? Because the telephone repair guys used to carry paper bags in their telephone service trucks. And the paper bags were like the right size to put a telephone in and then fold over the top and then tape it so that the roaches wouldn't come out. And they had a term for those service calls when they would go to someone's house and they'd say, hey, my phone won't ring. And that service call would be entered in the log as BDR, which stands for Bell Don't Ring. And that was because that meant roaches. That meant roaches in the telephone system or the equipment. But we've gotten away from being able to fix things ourselves, and I really don't like it. And I think that's why farmers, and I've mentioned this on the air several times, I think that's why farmers are interested in buying old tractors. I was on the telephone with a Deutz dealer. I haven't been to their location, but I was on the phone with them about obtaining a part. And we were talking about the old parts, and this gal said, boy, it's really getting tough to find used parts for the Deutz tractors in our neck of the woods, like in Missouri. And she said that's because the farmers all got rid of them and traded them or sold them for scrap metal and got them all crushed. So the transmission gears and parts and starters and crankshafts and all the kind of stuff that we might want to have as spare parts, well, that has been crushed. Or a lot of it's been crushed, and now it's getting expensive, and farmers are having a tougher time buying used older tractors that don't have the electronics. They don't want the electronics because they can't repair the electronics.
Well, and those are going to be the first things that pop when we have a CME or something equivalent. I just posted that when the day the lights go out and the trucks stop running. There it is.
Yeah,
we're due. We're absolutely due. There's a comet coming in on the 25th. Heads up. I don't know what it all means yet. Why is the government not announcing the radioactivity in Florida? They took a whole month before they even notified the public of the danger of those sinkholes. It's crazy. The government is no longer our friend. It is not there to protect us and help us. It is run by criminals and is the organization now used to control the masses. And I've had enough.
I was watching a couple of the episodes of Vikings. Have you seen that on...
Which one?
Vikings.
No, I haven't. Okay. Yeah, that sounds... Yeah.
I don't know for sure, but I believe I have some Viking blood in me and from my dad, because my dad was, he was Italian, but he's blonde and blue and tall and lean. And I think he was blood aligned with berserkers. And the berserkers were the Vikings who would lead the charge, and they would pound their chests and they would yell and holler and scream and charge the enemy. And they would take spears and arrows and they'd keep going. And they would say that guy went berserk. And they were called the berserkers. And my dad was really, really tough. And so I've been trying to follow some of the Viking history, and I'd like to learn more about it. I don't know much about it at all. But it's a great series. In one of the lines, and I don't have the line exactly right, but it's something like power attracts evil. Power attracts evil people or bad people. And power, if you get it, you become bad. And I think that's right. I think that if you look at Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, you look at Bernie Madoff, you look at Rahm Emanuel, no matter who you look at in politics or in power, they seem to become evil. Now, were they evil to start with? Yeah, they probably had it, but it certainly got enhanced. So I think that power attracts evil people. Do you agree, or do you think that's far-fetched?
I think that like begats like, and there you are. Power corrupts, and ultimate power corrupts ultimately. You know, I I just got another thing here to tangent here for a minute. The Libertarian candidate, Gary Johnson, now I have nobody to vote for. He is just sold out to Big Pharma. Says that children should be forcibly injected with mercury at gunpoint. He said it.
Yeah.
What are we doing here? I mean, it's obvious that none of the candidates represent anything the American public wants. So what does the American public do now?
Well, they do what they're doing in North Carolina. They take to the streets and they start lighting fires and bashing in police cars and causing chaos. Don't you think that's coming? I do.
I think it will be a revolution. How it's going to play, whether it's a quiet one like Mahatma Gandhi, or it's going to be a more secret one like Anonymous. I don't know how this is going to play. But we need someone like Pinocchio, where at least when they're lying, we can tell. You know, the whole thing is a mess.
Rick,
and I don't... This is the first time in my life that I actually am not going to vote. And that's going to be a vote for Hillary Clinton, I'm afraid. However, I refuse to vote for somebody I don't believe in. And I don't believe in either of these candidates or any of the write-in candidates that might even be possible. Like this libertarian guy, Gary Johnson. This is nuts.
Rick, what makes you think your vote counts? My vote doesn't count. My mom's vote doesn't count. None of our the Finelli's family vote counts for president. Okay, locally, maybe there is some possibility that the election won't be stolen or skewed or tampered with. Maybe. I don't know that either.
It already has been tampered with because that's our candidates.
No, I'm talking about yeah. That's a good point. So I don't at this point I don't plan to vote in the presidential election. I do not want to become part of that scheme. So
what would happen if instead of Obama holding out because Hillary's not well and has to withdraw, blah, 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 what would happen if the American public refused to participate on a one-by-one basis?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's my plan at the moment. That is my plan in terms of the presidential election because it doesn't matter what my thoughts are. What matters is what the Electoral College does. Those are the thugs. Those are the selected people who select the president from the two choices that they get, Hillary or Donald. Those are the choices that they get, and they're going to pick one of them. We'll be right back. Doc Ram's with us, Dr. Richard Allen Miller, and John's engineering the broadcast in Minnesota at Genesis Communications Network. So the governor calls out the National Guard in Charlotte, North Carolina, as a result of the police shooting and killing a man. And it seems like Barry Soetoro's reign here in the United States is one of rioting and demonstrations and protests. And I guess his legacy is it's going to be that he has destroyed the hope of young people to do better than their parents, the hope of the American dream, the potential to achieve the American dream, the working really hard and saving money and buying a house and a car and maybe that small boat that's on a trailer in the driveway, the things that many people aspired to years ago. It looks like that's over now, and there's no chance of doing that. As a matter of fact, what's happening is that parents are moving in with children are moving in with parents, grandparents are moving in, or the families are moving in with the grandparents. We're consolidating. Rick, we've got people living in cars, and the result of all of this, the destruction of the economy, the destruction of the jobs, the destruction of our educational system, is evident because people are just furious, and it's their anger at the system that I believe is one of the reasons why there's so much violence in North Carolina, Charlotte, North Carolina, and
the police are reflecting that with being trigger happy. I believe because they're afraid. They are feeling the pressure, whether they're good, bad, or ugly. And I don't have, the American dream, the only way you can achieve the American dream is by being asleep. It's not about being awake. It's crazy. I don't know where we go with this. That's why I live in the country. Why I have announced to the universe, if you want to put me on payroll, I'd be glad to now at 73 years old live a simple, quiet, uneventful life and go out peacefully. And right now, I'm angry, I'm struggling, and as long as I'm struggling, I'm going to fight and say something to the world.
Yeah, and activists are those who are preserving our rights. So, class, when you think about, when you say no in line and you challenge the system as an activist, you are helping to protect your rights. And I'm talking to a whole bunch of people, one-on-one, who are becoming more active, and they're not taking it the way they used to. So when the clerk demands to see ID and things like that, they say, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not participating. And so what's happening in North Carolina now is they're using tear gas, and they're using their sounds of explosions. Now, that's coming from the system. That's coming from those in uniforms. And by the way, the more uniforms I see, the more I distrust uniforms. When I see people in uniforms, I don't have a good, happy feeling about them. I think that they're probably not there to help me. Now, maybe a nurse or a doctor in hospital scrubs, that's a little different. But they may be there to help us. But when I see government people in uniforms, I'm not overwhelmed with joy. I was traveling through a neighborhood in Missouri, and I happened to see a police car parked in front of a house. And I said to the person who lived just a few houses down the road, "How do you feel about that? Having a police patrol car right down the road within a few hundred feet?" And the person said, "We've got really noisy neighbors. They just make a lot of noise, and the cop doesn't do anything about it." Okay, that makes sense. But the feeling was, well, it's nice to have a police car there. And then my thought was, I wouldn't, if I were looking for a house and I saw that there were a cop living there, I would not move there. I would, for that one reason, I'd say, if I was in a vehicle with a realtor, I'd say, let's keep going. I'm not interested in being in this neighborhood, because I don't want to be near someone who is looking for problems most of the time based on quota or contests. I'm not looking for someone like that. And that's why when we had our computer company, we would not sell computer equipment to lawyers, because they're looking for problems. They're looking for a fight. They're looking for a challenge. They're looking for a reason not to pay their bill. And cops are looking for problems. I don't want to deal with people looking for problems. I want to deal with people looking for solutions. Doc Ram, and I'll be right back. Rick Miller's with us, docram.com, docram.com, if you'd like to follow along with what Dr. Richard Allen Miller's doing. Rick, I'm looking at a post from the New York Post, nypost.com. And the headlines say, "It's no longer safe for the city's senior citizens to go outside." There's a picture of this nicely dressed woman. She's 94 years old. She's wearing a dress, and she's in a wheelchair in a clothing store. And she's shopping for an article of clothing, and she had $600 in cash that she had stuffed into her bra as she was shopping. She's looking toward the clothing, and a young guy with sneakers on comes from behind her, grabs the money, and leaves. Now, here's what the article says. They're robbed as they walk their dogs, go on moonlit strolls, or sit waiting for buses. They're robbed as they lean on their canes or sit in their wheelchairs. In some cases, they're shoved to the ground and kicked while they're down. More than once a day, on average this year, someone over the age of 65 was mugged somewhere in New York City. And the numbers are up, particularly in Bronx and Manhattan. City seniors know they're vulnerable, and they are given a choice between safety and freedom, and they're choosing safety, limiting what they do and where they go in order to keep safe. So that's what's happening in New York, and I'm sure it's happening not only in New York but in other cities that seniors are being targeted. This is not the country that I grew up in. I was taught the kind of things that Boy Scouts. Yeah. Absolutely, the kind of things Boy Scouts were taught. If you see a senior or an elderly person, help them get across the street. That kind of stuff. That's what I was taught. Leave it better than you found it. Whatever it is, leave it better than the way you found it. And it seems like we have spiraled down, and we've lost our values. So what I'm trying to do in my life, if I see someone who needs help as a senior, I am willing to help them. But I also notice that by carrying a gun that's absolutely visible on my person, I think that is a deterrent for someone. And I'm 63 right now, soon to be 64, and so maybe I might be perceived as vulnerable. But I don't think that someone's going to come up to me and try to steal money from me because I'm armed. And I think if more of us were armed, these young thugs would say, you know what, that guy just might be fast enough to pull out that handgun and shoot me. So maybe I ought to not attempt to hurt him or approach him or try to steal from him. I think that's my position, and that's why I do it.
I have mentioned this before, but ammonia is possibly the finest weapon there is for old people. You know, it's not recognized. You don't have to have a water pistol that leaks. You can have a nice little tiny squirt bottle and have it easily deployed, and all you have to do is hit him in the face once with that ammonia, and that's that. Not only will he be captured by the law because he's going to be rendered useless for a few minutes, he's also going to never do that again like a rabid dog. When I was a little boy, there was this dog that would chase me down a hill every day when I'd come home from school. And I came home bloody one morning because the dog had knocked over my bicycle. And my dad gave me a little squirt gun, and he filled it with ammonia. And when I came home that next day, that dog came out at me, and I squirted him once. I heard him yelp. I never saw that dog again. He never chased me down that hill again. By the way, he never chased any other person down that hill again. He was more mindful. It didn't hurt him, didn't kill him. I don't want to hurt anybody. I don't want to kill anybody. What I want is for them to stop that behavior. And that's that.
And I understand that from our daughter, that she has a cat, and the cat, when she first got it, would climb places where, on the table and things like that, and because the cat didn't know that was not allowed, and so our daughter trained it with a squirt gun with water, because cats don't like water so much, and so the cat would climb on the table, get squirted with water, and pretty soon that cat decided that there are places that the cat shouldn't go, and that was that. So that's one way of.
Yeah, there's other things you can put in there besides ammonia also. Sulfuric acid comes to mind. There's all kinds of things that you can do to protect yourself that will leave a statement.
Yeah,
I wouldn't use that sulfuric acid unless it was a zombie. But I'm telling you, that, where you were trying to hurt them, like scar them, that was the other thing my dad said. You never sought to fight that if you were forced to fight, unfortunately, that if you were lucky enough to get them on the ground, you always put your boot to their face, sulfuric acid, whatever, to scar them so they'd remember it the next time they thought about doing it. That was my dad's lessons. I don't believe in that doing it like that. However, that's the way I was raised. You do not seek a fight, but if you're fortunate enough, if you're forced to fight, you do it to leave them an impression, literally.
Rick, some people might be horrified at what you just said.
Why?
However, well, okay, I just want to defend what you just said. The police are using the equivalent of disfigurement and worse. Worse, they're using guns with fragmenting bullets. They're using bullets that say, if you go to a gun show, you can find bullets called Rangers, and it says for police use only. These are absolutely devastating bullets that will just fragment so that a surgeon probably can't get all the little pieces out, if the person survives that long. They're allowed to do that. And then what you just said was sulfuric acid, which would be, maybe it would blind someone, maybe disfigure their face or whatever. I'm not saying
it will. That's the deal, the difference, and why I wouldn't use it. But, ammonia works perfectly. And if you had a large horde of people coming at you, a water cannon is unbelievable in how that will deploy that group away from you.
Okay, so I'm going to say publicly that I can't recommend or endorse using sulfuric acid. Okay, I'm going to say that publicly. However, the police use water cannons on we the villagers. They've used water cannons for years. That's nothing new, Rick. Massive water cannons to blow people back. I'm not talking about hose them down. I'm talking about blowing them backwards with the ferocious force of these water cannons. And that was one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, Rick, during this broadcast. Weapons. Do you think that the governments or the governance are looking at new ways of harming us and deterring us from whatever we might want to do?
Listen, the latest deployment for crowd control is microwave that causes the metal in your teeth and your belt buckle to heat up, so you start wiggling like a worm.
And what if you have screws in your body or pieces of
there it is.
Stainless steel?
That's exactly how it works. And it will, that deploys a crowd, and that's just a little microwave band, low amplitude. The French invented a device called infrasound, where they send out a 10 hertz beat to set up standing waves on your heart to induce ventricular fibrillation. Listen, we haven't even begun to start on the weapons thing. How's that, Ben Diesel? See this pin down here on this ground? I'm going to kill you with that little pin. What was that? Rajek or whatever his name was? Riddick. Yeah. I am here to tell you that that's one of the reasons why I live in the country. I cannot deal with the social standards found in large cities anymore. And when the grid goes down, and it is going to go down, that is an absolute fact. What are you going to do when you're 16 floors up and have to go to the bathroom?
What are you going to do if you're in your basement and you have a toilet in your basement and someone 16 floors up does actually flush the toilet and the sewage treatment system has stopped? It goes
downhill from there. And the food is next. This 3-day just-in-time delivery thing is crazy. That's why the Mormons do what they do. Storing 1 year of food. That had to do with a situation with seagulls saving their bacon. But I have to say something. Today's jungle, and it's a jungle out there, has changed. And the rules are changing. And the police are changing their rules in terms of serve and protect. I have a very good friend that came up as an LA detective, wanted to, serve and protect up here, did an interview with a local police department and decided to go into animal control because he didn't want to deal with the corruption in this area of law enforcement. It is terrible here, and it's the worst in our state, in Josephine County. And we have Klan and other kinds of things that have their own values that I'm not going to disagree with. In fact, the Klan is one of the things trying to battle the Mexicans and the blacks coming up from L.A., setting up their methamphetamine and heroin drug rings. The FBI out here in Selma is a rogue unit that is out of control and not working for anybody but themselves. And what do? Well, neighborhood watch. And what did I call that? As a red, retired, and dangerous. And we have kibbutzim up here that are, barbed wire fences around their property. It's
Rick, you said neighborhood. You said neighborhood watch. We have a neighborhood watch right here.
I'm not talking about neighborhood watch, man. That's the early stages. I'm talking about, my neighbor, and I have an understanding that anything that bothers either of us doesn't leave.
Yeah, and we have a neighborhood watch right here. It's just our family, and we're watching our neighborhood, and we've had quite an impact in terms of reducing the number of thugs and poachers that come down our road. We'll be right back. So, Rick, I was chatting with this young man. He just came back from Iraq, and he shared a story with me, and so he and 5 of his buddies from Iraq came back to the States, and they were renting this house in a city, and they noticed that there was a lot of activity across the street, and they determined it was drug dealing. A lot of drug dealing was going on, so they notified the cops, the city cops, and they said, look, here's what's going on, and nothing happened. And so they notified the cops, and nothing happened. And then they decided that they would patrol their own street. So they sent a letter to the police department saying that their intentions were to patrol their neighborhood with rifles, AR-15s, and they were just going to take it upon themselves just to patrol. And there were 6 of them. And all of a sudden, on patrol, the police showed up, drew their weapons on 3 of these guys who were on patrol. And so these guys who notified the police of their intentions were drawn upon by the police department. So one of the guys, the guy I talked to, said that what he did was he had a copy of the letter that he sent to the police department in his pocket, and he told the cops that he was going to take this letter out of his pocket and he was going to show them. And the cops said, there are 6 of you on this list. I only see 3 of you. And the cops were, still had their guns pointed at these 3 guys. And the cops wanted to know where the other guys were. It's like, where are the other guys? And so the guy that I was talking with said, they're on Overwatch. What he was telling these cops was that they had their handguns drawn at these ex-military guys from Iraq. And the guy from Iraq said, keep this in mind. There are guys who can see you, and you're in their rifle scopes right now. So the police holstered their handguns and left. And that's what happened. So
that's how you do it. Mm-hmm. Sleight of hand.
Well, it's tactics that the police use. It's their tactics. It's military tactics. It's what our guys were taught. And so our guys they cleaned up their neighborhood. They wanted this drug dealing to stop. The cops weren't doing anything about it. It's just like we had poachers here on the farm, and we called the game warden, and I don't know, maybe you could say he tried. He put a mechanical deer here, and people would drive down the road and say, hey, listen, there's a mechanical deer over at the Finelli's farm. You want to go see what one looks like? And so it didn't do any good. So the government was unable to help us. So we just said, we can fix this. We live here. So we just patrolled our own area. And when the cars went up and down the road, and these trucks went up and down the road looking for animals to hunt on our property, we interviewed them. We asked them what they were doing and what their intentions were, and they saw that we had these black rifles. And they saw that, they had their hunting rifles and we had the black rifles. And it looked like they didn't know how many of us there were. And they thought, what? Maybe we'll just keep going down the road or actually leave. And within a couple of years, the word got out. This is not a place to go poaching. It doesn't work too well. Because these guys just might be crazy.
My friend my friend that ended up working in animal control is now chasing an animal serial killer. He's actually doing that. They exist. There's some person out here and where I live that's murdering animals senselessly as a serial killer and putting a small cigarette in their mouth. There's crime going on all over, on all levels, and it's like on a personal level, not in my home.
Yeah. And we've got animal killers flying in airplanes and spraying chemicals on the planet. It's omnicide. They're killing everything on the planet currently with impunity until the international courts catch up to them, or until there's a revolution and then the villagers catch up to them. Yeah. I can see this happening. I can see it happening.
HangTheBankers.com.
Yeah. When we come back, let's talk about some physics. What's heat? Actually, what is heat? Is it waves? Is it particles? What is light? Is it waves? Is it particles? And let's talk about head transplant and the potential of herbs as a cash crop. We'll be right back. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Hour number 2 of USA Prepares with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. We broadcast every Tuesday with Rick Miller. DocRam.com. DocRam.com. Rick, you and I and Matt Stein, Storm and Norman Cantwell, Craig Douglas, all USA Prepares instructors are going to be in Kansas City at the Survival Expo, KCI Expo Center, October 1 and 2, right?
Yes, and I will be doing a talk that I may write as an article for the Nexus America that has just merged with Gaia TV. Nexus Magazine has been my mentor, publisher for more than 15 years. I am honored that they are now going to hold an American Nexus conference this next year, and I will be talking at Kansas City on the world mind control, global mind control, and the first 4 worlds of defense, and how to defend yourself against what's going on out there. And let me tell you, it is coming at us from all sides. It's unbelievable. From electromagnetic waves, your heat thing that you want to talk about, it's coming to us in education, and the fact that the family has broken down to the point where there is no direction for our children in moral codes of ethics, rules of conduct. It's just our society is breaking apart at the seams. And my guess is, in the end, when it's all over, the United States is going to be divided into 9 basic provinces, some of which may or not be part of the Union.
Yeah. And Matt Stein's going to be talking about when disaster strikes and what you need to do, know, and have on hand. I'll be talking about, I'm going to be talking about disinformation. I'm going to be talking about some of the lies that have been told to us and how we can ferret out the truth and what we need to know in order to defend ourselves. So yours and your seminar and mine dovetail. And then Craig Douglas is going to be talking about food storage, how to select food and what's right. And then you've got Storm and Norman Cantwell, who's going to be flipping people around on the on the floor. He's
showing them how to do hands to nuts combat.
Yeah, there you go. And I'm also going to be talking about how to start your own business and take the same tax deductions that Donald Trump takes, including if you decide that you're going to start your own business, you just make that mental decision how you can write the trip off to come to see
Trump
us.
is a buffoon, but he said something the other day that I really enjoyed. He said it used to be that Detroit made all the automobiles and you couldn't drink the water in Mexico.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, guess what? All the cars are made in Mexico, and guess what? You can't drink the water in America.
Well, that's something that I wanted to talk to you about, Rick. There are toxins in most major cities that are way, way dangerous. I'm talking about even chromium.
Those are your tax dollars at work.
Yes. And so, do you have a thought? Well, okay, so anyway, we're going to be in Kansas City, and we'll be available to answer your questions to the best of our abilities, and that will be October 1 and 2. And Rick, do you find that after your seminar, people come up to you and they've got like more questions, and then they've got more and more questions?
That's what going into the future is all about. Isn't it amazing that the more you begin to actually understand, the more questions you have, which means, are you making any ground?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what I find interesting is a lot of times the wife will be there for the seminar, and then on Saturday, and then she'll say, she'll come up to me and say, I've got to have my husband come and meet you and talk some more about this, or it'll be, the other spouse saying, I've got to get my spouse to come to hear more about this because it's something that he needs to hear or she needs to hear. But then there's one thing that we cannot fix, and that's church. I have been unable to get people to come to our events instead of going to church. They will say, no, I've got to go to church. I go, well, weren't you there last week? Yeah. How about the week before? Yeah. Most every Sunday, for years? Yeah. Well, do you think you can get your preacher to let you off just once? And just once, maybe. You want me to write you a note? I'll write you a note. And they say, no. No.
Actually, the church itself should hold a congregation because at some point it's going to play like that. Religious differences. There are things in terms of this immigration laws that are happening where they're bringing people in from other worlds purposefully to disrupt. And when I say that, ideologies aside, the Muslim religion and the Christian religion, by definition, are in opposition to each other right out of the gate. And now a good Muslim and a good Christian can live very, very well together. However, their ideologies are different. For example, in a Muslim household, it is okay to lie to an infidel. Now, these values there's nothing wrong with those values. However, it's like oil and water. They don't mix because of fundamental foundations in belief systems. And here's the bad news. That's arbitrary because if you were born in Iraq, there is a high likelihood you are not going to be a Christian. That means that
Rick,
beliefs like that separate us from church and state are arbitrary, and that we need to revision what it means to get along. And that's why I'm always drawn not so much to Christian teachings, but the teachings of Christ, which was different, called a seen philosophy. And I am at war inside myself as well as outside myself in trying to reconcile these variations and not making judgment on another man. That's God's will. It isn't that they're wrong. I don't know because I'm not God. And to make judgment is the very thing Christianity is supposed to not do, and yet they would be possibly the first to break their own rule. So I'm confused, and I don't understand what's going on. And
how about the FBI? How about the FBI, Rick? The FBI feels that they are entitled to lie and masquerade and impersonate journalists.
Well, there it is. There it is. The double values. Do what I say, not what I do. I have to tell you, Quantico, the series Quantico, is opening my eyes to the way it is just working. I was so glad to be so transparent and ignorant that they kept me on the outer rings as a spook because I was really a nerd. And I didn't want to play that game of not knowing who anybody is in the lab next to me. That's crazy.
Well, in that series Quantico, these agents are encouraged to lie and misrepresent.
That is exactly correct. And how to manipulate. And here's the thing about lying. There are all kinds of lies. How about counterintelligence, lying by omission? Not telling a lie, telling the truth, but misdirecting. Look, children, over here. ISIS is beheading a bunch of people. Hey, children, look, over here. And it's sleight of hand. That's what it is. It's a sleight of hand. Laser main magic.
And when an FBI agent comes to our door and wants to talk to us, that's the last thing I want to do, is talk to an agent.
Well, you don't know how to trust him, and who knows if he's really an FBI agent. I think the first thing you do is you take a photocopy with your camera of his badge, see how he likes that. Seeing your badge is one thing. Here, let me get my camera and take a quick picture, please, of you with your badge. Let's see how that plays.
Well, I can tell you how it plays.
That's your right to do that, by the way, and to pick up the phone and call the FBI to confirm that the person at your door is the real deal. No, I want proof, and that badge is not enough.
Before I had a chance to know Mike Parsons very well, he came to one of our expos, and Mrs. Finelli came up to me and she said, "Vincent, there's this reporter who wants to talk to you." And I said, "Oh man, I'm so busy." And she said, "No, he really wants to talk to you. He's been pestering me. Would you please just go talk to him?" So I said, "Okay." So I went over to where this guy was, and I said, "Well, come on over here." I brought him over to an area where we could chat kind of privately, well, semi-privately. I mean, there's a lot of people there. And just away from the crowd by, maybe 10 feet, 15 feet. And so this man said to me, "How many guns do you have? How much food do you have?" And I bristled at that, and I immediately jumped him. And I said, "Who are you?" And, "I need to see your ID right now, right now." And so I I did the police tactics, okay? Down on the ground, that kind of thing.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so he pulls out his driver's license, and I took a picture of it, front and back, right then and there. And I said, "All right, now, do you have any diseases I need to know about? Because I don't know who you are." And Mike, and now the corner of my eye, I see this 6'5" guy, Mike Parsons.
And the key is to not do this in anger. The key is to do this in panache, and, you have rights, I have rights. I'd like to exert my rights by knowing who you are before I disclose private information. Period. End of story. And why would you want to know how many guns I have? Is that called gun hoarding or animal hoarding, or what is that called? And now there's a group out there that are trying to separate people that collect guns to those that just have one or two.
Yeah.
It only takes one, buddy. It doesn't take a bunch of them. There's no difference.
Yeah. And Mike Parsons had a big grin on his face when he saw me do that for the first time. We'll be right back. Doc Ram's with us, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Rick, at the top of the hour news, the mayor of Charlotte, North Carolina, said to the effect that, well, Charlotte, North Carolina is open for business. I was talking about the protests and the rioting. And so you can see that the number one concern of the CEO of the Charlotte, North Carolina Corporation is concerned about commerce. That is their number one concern. So these protesters, to have an impact on getting the city to pay attention to them, is disruption of commerce. That's what they're most concerned about. A couple of people getting killed here or there, that doesn't seem to matter unless the public uses that as an attention getter to disrupt even more commerce. And so that's really what this is all about. The city is concerned about tax revenue, sales revenue. They don't want businesses to go out of business because people don't want to go to Charlotte, North Carolina because of fear of being harmed. So that's my take on it. And then something else I heard on top of the hour news that bothers me is that these flat screen televisions some of them have been manipulated so that the testing of how much energy they use has been altered by a test configuration so that when they're being tested, they appear to use less electrical energy than they use in the real life situation. So that's another case of fraud and lying to we the villagers, we the people who buy these devices. Just like Volkswagen lied about the fuel economy of their vehicles by manipulating the test conditions or the environment for the testing, so that they appeared to use less. Have less emissions than they actually do. So here's
just like cell phones and recharging batteries, we are being exposed to higher and greater levels of toxicity that we can't see, feel, smell, or otherwise taste, spindle, or mutilate. You know, smart meters aside, the cell phone is going to be at some point realized as one of the single most direct causes for cancer.
And you've got a link on your site, docram.com, about 5G, fifth generation telecom, the perfect tool to mass modify our brains.
If we do this, we're sunk, and they are trying to ram that through Congress right now. It's terrible. Mm-hmm. And no disclosure, even to someone like me, as a scientist, that spot this right away. I still can't find all the data that I would need to vet the completing of on my feelings on it. And I have to tell you, if I can't figure it out, what does that suggest? They're spending a lot of time to make it convoluted.
So,
why is that?
If we have, just so that if we have those new to this broadcast, if we are breathing air that has aluminum and metals in it, and that becomes part of our body, if we are drinking soft drinks, soda that has acid in it, that etches the liner of the cans of soda that are made out of aluminum, and we drink aluminum with our beverage, if we're using antiperspirants that contain aluminum, if we are cooking, and we're applying that to our bodies because we don't want people to see us sweat, if we are cooking with aluminum cookware, aluminum pots and pans, if we're using aluminum foil.
Aluminum.
Right. If we're doing all these things and we have aluminum in our bodies, which we know causes mental problems, which we know causes Alzheimer's-like problems, if we're doing that and we have aluminum in our bodies, and that's a conductor of electricity, and then we have electromagnetic radiation coming from the cell phones and the towers, are we not cooking ourselves at a greater rate than we might
Yeah,
think?
what they're doing is turning you into a little laptop, better known as an avatar. Transhumanism. That's called a bio API, capital API. Check it out. Just do a Google on bio API. See where that takes you. That's an interesting thing about what's happening. And here's the bad news, that, you know, the aluminum recycling bottle cans that you take in, well, they're delivering it back to you, like first with soda and now with aerosols. And I have to tell you, we're being attacked.
We no longer recycle aluminum cans here at the farm. We used to save them for people who would take them and earn money from them. No longer. We throw them away because we don't want to be breathing those aluminum cans. We'll be right back. Class RK has a gun show. Actually, got 3 gun shows, September 24th and 25th. Gray, Tennessee, Germantown, Tennessee, Conyers, Georgia. That's the 24th and 25th of September. Gray, Tennessee, Germantown, Tennessee, Conyers, Georgia. RKshows.com. Link on the website, usaprepares.com. Rick, we're talking about weapons that can be used against us. One of the questions I had for you is, what is heat? What actually is heat? And we know what it feels like when it gets hot. We know what it feels like when there's absence of it, which is cold. What actually is heat?
Heat is infrared light. That's what heat is. It's light in the infrared zone. You can see it in the visible region. When things start to get hot, they get red. Infrared means beyond the red color. It starts to manifest itself not so much in the visible region, but you can touch it and know that it's hot. It's still light. It's still electromagnetic radiation. It's just in such a low vibratory level that you can't see it with your eyes, but you can feel it with your hands. That's why we have different senses, to include odoriferous molecules that you can smell with your nose and types of oils that you can taste with your mouth, giving you a range of sampling of the universe as it would appear. And we would say that all phenomena, physical phenomena, is some form of electromagnetic radiation, some of which is the ground moving up and down so slowly, you call it an earthquake. But that's a frequency.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and
heat is infrared.
Is there a way that we can defend ourselves from these microwave weapons that would be used to heat us up?
Yes and no. Microwave dissipates with 1 over r square, so the further away you are, the less strength it has in amplitude. But some microwave is so small that it penetrates through anything. Your Faraday cage is usually, that shields things like that, is a series of wires interconnected with each other so that the wavelength is too big to fit between this wire and that wire. And as the wires get smaller, the higher frequencies you can screen. The thing is, with microwave, is so small a wavelength that even with certain kinds of materials, the way they would bond with itself is on a nanometer level, and you can still get a microwave through it. Or microwave is so small that if you had a hinge, a screw that you screwed in, it can ricochet itself around, reflecting around the threads and inside the closed chamber. Nuking is what we call that when you do your food. You're going to nuke your food. There it is. You're nuclear. You're nuking it. So all of this is metaphor in terms of the problems we're now facing. And the cans, the aluminum cans we were talking about, right now, they're milling that down to nanometer, which means you can't shield it wearing a hat because it'll fall through the hat, it'll fall through the brain skull and directly into the brain because it's that small a particle. Has nothing to do with breathing it in. It can fall in by gravity. We're messed up big time.
And so the animals...
Yeah.
The animals that we use for our food supply, they're breathing this, they're drinking.
Toxic, yes.
And there's no way around this.
Yeah, you are no longer what you eat, but whom you feed. And if you, 2 years ago, I did aluminum and barium oxide panels on my blood. I wanted to see, if I had aluminum and barium in my system. My aluminum levels were over 1,000 times normal. And I started using modafillin. Thank you, Matt Stein. That's a brown algae extract. And I started using curcumin 95 or turmeric. Thank you, Norm Shealy. And those two things I've been taking for 2 years, and I did my panels last week, and my aluminum now is almost down to normal, where it should be. How about your panels? I would recommend that we all begin to just assume we're toxic and heavy metals right now, and there's this little device that Japan has come out with called a detox foot massage. You put your feet in electrolysis, and it pulls all the heavy metals out of your feet, because that's where they all migrate. And that's why reflexology and everybody likes their foot massage, and it goes crunch, crunch, crunch. You're breaking down the lactic and uric acid that have deposited there from gravity. And that's where your metals are as well. And wait till you see how yucky the water becomes when it starts electrolysis and moving those heavy metals out of your body. It's creepy.
Rick, are you saying that these heavy metals migrate down to our feet because of gravity? Because that's the
ones
lowest.
That are not absorbed by organs to cause them to have. What were we talking about? Oh yes, Alzheimer's. Yes.
Yeah, and that was obviously that was something that was coming to mind.
There it is.
Because in my encounters with people, I'm finding that they're saying, "Boy, my memory's nowhere near as good as it used to be." It's almost universal. Almost universal.
What were we talking about? What memory? What? Who? What? Yeah,
that's kind of how it goes.
From there, senior moments aside, this is getting crazy, and I have no idea who's doing it and for what. There's all kinds of different aerosols, and I'm guessing there's probably at least 20 or 30 different reasons why they're doing it. One of which is there's too many people on Earth, and oh wait, we can use this as a quick waveguide to deploy, microwave into da-da-da-da-da. It's crazy.
Yeah, and maybe if we didn't poison them, we could eat them, so they could. They could.
Or better yet, let's turn them into a little Borg. Resistance is futile. Turn us into laptops, just like in Person of Interest.
I like that sign that says "Eat the Rich." I like that sign.
Eat the Rich. Yeah.
Rick,
Cannibalism and Lord of the Flies. That's a book that everybody should revisit again, because that's how it's going to play. And when everything goes down into a black hole, it will be Lord of the Flies, and how the hierarchy of who's in charge works.
Lord of the Flies. Rick, what about light weapons? We know about lasers. I'll tell you what, I saw a little hand.
The boom grenades? The phosphorus grenades?
Actually, I was talking about
doing that a long time.
I was talking about laser type weapons, using light as a weapon, using light to drill holes. I know. I saw a laser. I saw a laser about 1 watt, just 1 watt, drill a hole through a piece of plastic in, I don't know, maybe a second.
Goldfinger took all our gold by doing that, according to James Bond. I have to tell you, I have not a clue what's going on in weapons today, but I can tell you that I'm getting all kinds of weird ringing in my ears from probably weapons being deployed down the street. They used to have to be just outside. Remember the through-wall surveillance and things? You had to, with microwave, you had to be, within 20, 30 feet. Now they can do it from space. This is crazy. And imagine your house is a Faraday cage with all the wiring and everything in it, so that you're sort of protected. And or, wait, maybe they're going to use those weapons to turn your house into a microwave oven and fry you slowly.
Okay, I understand that the Chinese space station is going to be coming down to Earth in 2017, the second half of 2017.
Yeah, they lost control. They finally admitted that.
They lost control. I wonder if they lost control or we disconnected their control. I wonder, that was the first thing that came to my mind.
Deniability. And oops, there goes another rubber tree plant.
Yeah, and my wife and I were talking about this, and we were talking about they have no idea where this thing's going to land. No clue where it's going to land, and they're saying, well, the fragments won't be really big, but however, this thing's coming down. There's no question about it coming down, and obviously it's not a good thing, but chances are it will land in the ocean because most of the surface of our planet is the ocean, but they can't control it. They cannot control where this thing's going to come down. So it's of concern, and my wife and I were talking about this, and I said, so what makes you think that they even care about the loss of life when this thing comes down? That's no big deal. To them, it is if it comes down in your neighborhood, but to them, I don't think they care.
Well, watch what happens on the 25th or 26th of this month. That's one which, in physics, that's called the many-body problem. When you have two solar systems, like billiard balls being thrown on a billiard table and trying to discover the equation of motion and where they're all going to go. That is what we're up against right now. And so, Nibiru and its solar system is now in collision with our solar system. And right now, it's not Wormwood, but it's one of those, like Wormwood, is out by Uranus. And that is called the many-body problem, where you can't solve the equation of motion. You don't know how it's going to play. When you throw those balls down on a table and they're all going in opposite directions and they hit each other and click, 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 pinball wizard. There you go. That's what we are. End of days. The only thing I know now is it's not going to be by flood because I have a rainbow.
When we come back, Rick, can we talk about some of the smartest people who ever lived, and Leonardo da Vinci is on that list. He's number one. Lived from 1452 to 1519, and they say that his IQ was about 200, but he was diversely the most talented person ever. Let's talk about some of those guys. Doc Ram's with us, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. If you'd like to go to his website, docram.com. Rick, there are a couple of things I think we'd like to talk about in the last few minutes. One of them is a head transplant. Another is the potential of herbs as a cash crop. Another one is some of the smartest people who ever lived. Do we have many of those people living anymore that are really, really smart?
Yeah, there's supposed to be 144,000 of us somewhere on this planet. Avatars. No, it's IQ is not what you think it is, and when someone calls you smart, that doesn't mean you're necessarily smart. I'm not. If I'm so smart, how come I'm still a starving artist? That kind of thing. Values, and that's what it comes down to when you measure someone is, what are your values? And from some points of view, that person's really smart. And in others, they're not. Because some people aren't looking for physical solutions, they're looking for spiritual ones. Now, right. There it is. I mean, values. And
okay.
So
yeah.
smartness.
If you didn't have values and morals, you could be rich. Just like
there you go. Morals and ethics, just like Ducky Mallard said when his response. A ethical man knows not to cheat on his wife. A moral man won't.
How about the potential
between ethics and morals, and the difference between intent and purpose? And when you do purpose, according to Aleister Crowley, none shall say nay. When you're doing what you're supposed to be doing here, you're not in conflict with anything. That's how you know.
You've got a book called The Potential of Herbs as a Cash Crop, and I was thinking about how can some of us earn some extra money. Rick, would that work if we followed the recommendations in your book, Potential of Herbs as a Cash Crop?
That's a basic book on export and doing a national what is that? Gross national product, that kind of thing. I'm rewriting that book. That book is basics on farming and how to go into a field and lay your field out. The things that a lot of people don't know, even if they're farming. However, what I'm writing now is the small farm, family farm for the 21st century. That's going to be out next month. And that book talks about herbal pharmacies, where your blood thinner is being grown because Walgreens may not be open anymore. The Encyclopedia of Alternative Agriculture just went up as an ebook on my sites. There's 9 volumes to that. And these are crops that are generic for given habitats and regions and mindsets. Living in New York is going to be a different kind of crop if you're in upstate New York than it is in Missouri. And each has native plants for barter. You have a history of crops that we cannot grow here, including, black cohosh, which is estrogen and things of that nature, where we have cascara out here, which is cascarines for laxatives. We are choosing our habitat, and like Kerchief, you should eat your environment. So if you live on the coast, you're eating fish, And that presumes you're doing seaweed and other kinds of kelps as part of your native plants. Whereas in Missouri, you have grasses and other kinds of grains that we are not growing here that are just growing wild there. That's where the barter part comes in becoming more centralized rather than decentralized in our exchange.
Rick, where do we get your encyclopedia, your ebook?
You can get all of these at oak-publishing.com. They're either on my Facebook page at docram.com or my primary website at richardallenmiller.com. I'm good to go.
Okay. Do you know what the cost of that ebook encyclopedia is, Rick?
The 9 volumes are $6 a book, or if you buy them all, I don't know what we're going to do, either $35 or $45, somewhere in there, where you get a bargain. And Amazon, well, then at some point I'm going to give it free to Amazon, and then if you want individual books, you can buy them directly from me. Right now I'm selling them as different forms of ebooks. There's Kindle, Nook, and PDF.
Very good, Rick. And what do you think about head transplants? Do you think that's going to work in the future?
They actually are trying to do that in China.
Yeah, that's.
I know they're actually trying to do that, and that is what an avatar is, where you move your intelligence into a golem or a body.
Rick, thanks so much for being with us. We're out of time. Class, above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you.